Hi folks, in this video I'm going to talk about emotions and how they are very much this physical thing that interacts with our body and how to sort of visualize them. So this is a bit of an off-the-cuff video. I saw another video on Facebook, and it really illustrated well this idea of, first of all, how we can carry other people's burdens. And this is something I've talked about mostly in my newsletter, but in posts as well. It's that there tends to be this average personality type for the low back pain sufferer. So people who deal with low back pain are often natural caregivers. They often put others' needs ahead of their own, and they tend to internalize things very well. So they can appear very calm and collected, but internally they can be quite troubled or just very overactive and anxious and all that sort of stuff. And that's something I've talked about, dealing with that myself, and it's a natural tendency of my own. And going into a caregiving profession seemed natural to me, and it seemed like something I was always encouraged to do because it seemed like I had a knack for it. But it comes with its downside, so it's something that I've seen personally, and then I was quite interested to find that it's been found as a general trend with people with low back pain. And where I heard about it first was from John Sarno, and he talks about very much mind, body, back pain. So yeah, it's this idea that we tend to internalize other people's issues. We want to solve everyone's problems. We want to help everyone and put everyone ahead of ourselves, and we carry that anxiety. And the challenge is, how do we conceptualize this? Like, how do we measure it? How do we measure it? What is it? That's always the challenge. It's not this really physical thing, it's not like carrying a physical weight, like I'm carrying 5 kilos on my shoulders now because I had a conversation with this person. It's this abstract thing, and it's individual and it's context specific. And so I found this video by chance on Facebook, and it appears to be just a film student or an animation student did this animation where, I'll show you here, I'll show footage, I'll give a shout out to this person. So basically in this video, you can see people having struggles, people feeling bad, and that the feeling of bad or the feeling of sadness is represented by this darkness. So these are white, nondescript people, as in white in color rather than ethnicity. And as they're holding onto some sort of burden, they've got these black sections to their body, and they seem to be these fluid things that pass on to others. And so this person is going to everyone, he's consoling everyone. And as he consoles someone, he takes on that negative emotion, that physical negativity. And so I thought this is a really nice representation of how we take on other people's burdens. But there was one thing in particular that I really liked, and it's around the 30-second mark. So this, just before that, so at the 25-second mark, and I'll include the footage, he goes up to someone having a discussion, and they're arguing, and this woman slaps this man. And then as she walks away, the man in the middle, he kind of reaches out to her, and as he reaches out to her, his reaching arm fills up with that sort of black ink. And I thought this was a really, really nice way of visualizing how your thoughts are embedded within your body, and how, when you can imagine how that person feels, that person in the middle who's just been slapped and he's had an argument and he's reaching, he's sorry, he's apologetic, and he doesn't want the other person to leave. And it's like his thought of please don't leave, or whatever it is that he's thinking, isn't just here, it's in his fingertips, it's in that reach. And you might try to think of a time, or pay attention to this next time you're in some sort of unfortunate circumstance, and how your thoughts and your emotions very much manifest physically whether it's like a withdrawal, whether it's a sinking feeling in your chest, whether it's like a longing for something or a longing for someone, and it's that you can't reach them. So like in this case, he wants to reach out, he wants to be reconnected to this person, but he can't. And it's very much this, this physical experience. And I thought that was really cool, the way that was represented. And it's really, really simple, and I feel like it should be immediately understood by anyone who watches this. And that's why I like it, because it can be very hard to translate these ideas to people, because like I said, you can't measure them. You can't measure, oh, I have this amount of negative emotion in my body. I've got 5 centimeters of it, or whatever the measurement would be. Now, this is another thing that I liked from the video, and it wasn't done in this video, but I thought it would have been a nice way to illustrate this. And it's sort of going back to this 25-second mark, the same argument, this man in the middle arguing with this woman, and our savior is walking over, but the man in the middle who's arguing, he gets slapped in the face. And I think it would have been nice to have that slap permeate sort of in like a drop of ink into a jug of water, and as it just spreads, that would have been quite a nice way to represent this, because this is what we see with injuries, particularly injuries that all kinds of injuries, but injuries even that don't leave damage. There's like this imprint, and so if I get hit here, I'm fine, I'm alive, I'm gonna survive, but the nerve endings here are sensitized, and they are now more susceptible to stress. And this is the importance of people's history, because I'll talk to people in clinic, and I'll say, what injuries do you have, no matter how far back, from the moment of birth, did you have a traumatic birth, all the way to the present day. And they'll say, well, yeah, I fell off a tractor, or I broke my leg, or this, that, and the other happened, but that was years ago, and that doesn't affect me now. And maybe it doesn't, but maybe it does, and we shouldn't immediately dismiss it, because a lot of these things can sort of remain there. So if you imagine again this person who's going out to everyone and taking on their burden, he's carrying all this stuff until he finds a way to dissipate it and to let it go and let it out. And that tends to happen with injuries, particularly non-traumatic injuries, injuries that don't sideline us, that don't make us bedridden, because those injuries we just tend to keep on going. If it's a full-on traumatic injury, then you'll have to go to the hospital, or you'll get care, and your focus will be on that, and so you're going to do your best to resolve that. But people tend to have tons of little ankle sprains, little things that never really required any care, but they leave this imprint on the body, and you can think of all of those instances as being a little drop of ink in this sort of water container, and it leaves, or suppose the person was made of paper, and it's a little drop of ink, and it leaves this stain, and you've got all these little stains that represent all the injuries you've had, all the traumas. And trauma is a strong word. I really mean, like, this could be a very mild trauma, or it could potentially be a very mild trauma to your body. So it's all these little things, and you begin to think, well, what has my body accumulated over the years? Multiple ankle sprains, knee injuries, whatever, just pains, traumatic injuries. Like I fell off a tractor. I'm using that example again. I think I've heard that one surprisingly a lot. Maybe it's an Irish thing, but you collect all these things, and that's all the physical insults. But then we have all those emotional insults, like the parents' divorce, the breakup, the death of your pet, the argument with your best friend, the falling out with your best friend, whatever it is, the emotional abuse, whatever it is, fill in the blank, and you'll know what these things are and how they relate to you. But you have all these little things, and they're all these little stains, for want of a better word, that color who you are and how you respond to things. And so going back to this animation where this guy gets slapped, and I think it would have been a really nice representation if the animator had sort of shown this be more of an imprint on the body. But I wouldn't blame them for that. But what I want to illustrate is that this is sort of like you can see emotions almost as a physical thing in people. So you could tell someone something, and it could be anything. It could be something funny, or it could be something tragic, and you can see that almost ripple through the body in a physical sense. Like, and it's particularly interesting when people try to not show it. So they'll try and keep a stone face, and you'll see like a little twitch, I'm really exaggerating, but you'll see little twitches, little scrunching of the face, little twitch in the hands, whatever it is. And it's almost like this, like a lightning bolt, or like dropping a stone into a pond and just watching the ripples and seeing where that goes. And it doesn't necessarily go in predictable ways, because again, it's not like a force going up your leg. It's this idea, and it goes into your mind, and you cope with that, and you try to shield yourself from that, and you find any kind of way of dealing with that. And actually a really nice way of illustrating this for yourself is to look at a really bright light. Don't look at the sun or something like that, something that might damage your eyes, but look at a bright light and see the scrunching. So if I look at the light there, I'm exaggerating it, but I might scrunch, and it's like the light is this thing going into me, and that's stressful, and I'm coping with it. I'm dissipating that stimulus by scrunching, by withdrawing, you'll often see people sniffing, flaring their nostrils. And we learn about all this. I learned this in PDTR. We look at all the little subtle signs that the body has, and it's basically coping and dissipating mechanisms. You kind of fire up different parts of the body and different nerves and different muscles, and it's almost very much like a dampening effect. So you have that stimulus, and it goes into you, whether you see it, whether you feel it, whether you hear it, whether you feel it internally, and you try to dissipate it. If it's a stressful stimulus, or if it's a strong stimulus, you try to dissipate it, and you'll dissipate it with withdrawal, with movements, with sort of protecting yourself, or with coming towards it, with being aggressive towards it, and you will dissipate it in various sorts of ways. So hopefully this is sort of making sense. Again, I'm always trying to figure out ways of explaining these concepts that you might only learn if you, like, the only reason I'm familiar with this kind of thing and I'm thinking about this in this kind of way is because I've studied all these things for my job, and I feel like you need to know this, but you shouldn't have to become a physical therapist or whatever to know it. And I feel like if you know this, you can better navigate your own life and your health, and you can better cope with the stresses, because ultimately the goal is, presumably you're in pain and you'd like to not be in pain, and you're trying to figure out why you're in pain, because if you knew why, then you probably wouldn't be in pain, because the solutions are generally fairly simple. So you're in pain and you don't know why, and you'd like to know why, and it often comes down to these little things in our lives, these little stresses, and our personalities and our identities and how we cope with the world, and how all of this just piles on and on and on, and then you get to a point where you're in pain, and that's it. And so like I said, hopefully that makes sense. Just to give credit where credit is due, that video I'm sharing is from Eleonora, Stella, Hariyono Oe. I'm sorry if I've butchered her name, but it's a really, really nice animation, and I'll include a link for that in the description, and you should go check it out, give it a like. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you want that clarified, or let me know if that that was that light bulb moment. I'm always looking to create those light bulb moments where suddenly it all makes sense and you have those dominoes go off for you. Because most of my recovery has come indirectly through little moments like that. Not through a foam roller, not through an acupuncturist or a spinal adjustment, but through something that was said or something that was explained or demonstrated or that I learned internally that just kind of set off that chain of understanding and realization. So hopefully this is one of those for you. So as always, like, comment, subscribe, do all that, share this video. Let me know if you have any questions, requests. Check out my course if you're interested in this stuff, you're in pain, you want to be out of pain, and you want to do it as quickly as possible. Check out my resources, particularly my course. There's one starting in January. If this is after January that you're watching this, I'll be doing another course, so check out my site. So yeah, have a good day, and thanks for watching.